Sporting interviews I've taken, what the problem I've run into is people have been so interesting. I suspect you're going to be the same. So with your permission, I'm thinking of doing kind of like mini publishing interviews,
Yeah.
like just the interview portion later as part of like series, but not really a documentary, like just interviews, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
If start with the easy stuff first, and
Okay.
then we can move on to the profound. Um, so, what is your first name, your Derby name, and your pronouns?
So, my first government name.
Yeah, or chosen
Okay.
name, whatever you like.
So my actual government name is Kellie, with an IE, not a Y. And my Derby name is Karnage. It was Madam Karnage when I first started, but then I got married and dropped the Madam, so I had to be a little bit more demure. Very demure, as anybody who's ever met me would say about me. And my pronouns are she, her.
What league do you play for?
So I currently am part of Shoreline Roller Derby out in Groton, Connecticut.
And what is your role in Shoreline?
Ooh. Uh, Currently, for the 2024 season, I was coach of our team, the Kraken Skulls, the Shoreline Kraken Skulls, and I am part of coaching and training. And I train specifically our new freshie group that just came in. Um, I have been head of coaching and training in the past, and I've been coach for 2 years, but I am now pivoting and going to be focusing more on officiating and cultivating our short track roller derby team.
How long have you been playing Derby?
October 11th of 2024 marks 13 years.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
You have another role in the Derby community. Do you want to talk to that a little bit?
Yeah. So me and my partner, my business partner, and platonic love partner, Slice. We have a podcast called Coming Hot Into the Box with Slice and Karnage. It's a roller derby podcast.
And it is fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. We love it so much. It that brings a lot of joy.
Good. And how long ago did you start the podcast?
Oh, let's see. It's September. We started the podcast 14 months ago. So just a little over a year.
I really appreciated when you did the mental health series on your podcast. So what inspired that? And how did you go about like choosing the topics?
So when Slice and I had first come up with the idea to do a podcast, like we created this like massive spreadsheet of just ideas that we had. And during that, like we start like spouting off random things like, depression in derby or anxiety in derby, and like pulling from a lot of our own experiences and the experiences we've had with others on our team. And so as we were looking at this list, and it was in the new year, and I was like, you know what, we should really tackle. We discussed that would be a good time for us to start to like tackle the mental health series that we created that we've gotten such great feedback for. And, I think the reason why we did it is because everybody that we've come into contact with, for the most part, has some sort of mental illness or chronic illness or neurospiciness that it's like pretty much like the thing. You're probably gay in some way, and or on the queer spectrum, and you also have one of those three big things. So many people I know are not only are they neurodivergent, but also have a lot of anxiety, and I'm definitely one of them. Um, and as a coach, I I feel very passionately about people's mental health, and because it affects how they play, So we we wanted to flush that topic out because there's just so much to say about it, because everybody deals with their own thing in any way, in different ways. So I think it's just within our community, it was good to just give a voice to that, and that was part of our goals with the podcast is to spread shine a spotlight on the things that need to be talked about.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel seen when they hear that other people struggle with the same issues because it can feel a little bit lonely, right?
Yeah, right. And especially when we were talking about things like our bipolar disorder, our bipolar episode, um, that's a really difficult, not to diminish any other mental health disorders, but like that's a really challenging one, especially when you're in a manic episode and how that will affect how you function in your life and in your skating life. And just knowing that there are a lot more people out there like you, and they're here, and we'll get through it. Like let's talk it out.
And I've heard you speak a few times on your podcast about being a coach and learning how to deal with different people with different types of mental illness. And is there something you can say to speak to that? Is that something you felt that you were born with, or it's something you had to develop over time?
I think, well, I come from a pretty significant family history of mental health issues, and childhood trauma. So but I've always had a very empathetic view. And I think it's just something that is kind of innately just one of those things for me that I can see. I know my people, and I can see when they're in some form of distress, or the opposite, like, or off, and I think as a coach, I think that's what one of my strengths are as a coach, is that I feel approachable. People know that I'm safe. And I give them the space to be what they need to be. And I don't always get it right. I don't, I'm learning. There's, it comes naturally to me, but that definitely doesn't exempt me from making judgments, judgment errors. But it's the communication, really. It's the talking it out. Like, I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but like, let's talk it out, and at least keep in mind what the sport is, and that's just to have a safe space and have fun.
Absolutely. And do you ever find, so dealing with your own mental illness, you've discussed depression before and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So depression tends to just kind of drain all the life out of you, right? And then you don't have much left to give.
Right.
So did you find that being a coach and being known for being that empathetic person, was there ever a struggle to, like, when you couldn't do it for yourself and you were empty? I don't know how to phrase that question, but when you're running
Yeah.
on empty and then somebody else needs your help, but you just can't because you're.
Yeah, and that's one of my big issues, is I am not great with boundaries like that, and I would rather help a friend than be concerned about my own mental well-being. And it gets me in trouble, because I'm really starting to notice this as I really settle into myself and really connect with my needs and what I need. But like, I've been hitting a wall, like, and that wall comes hard and fast sometimes. And I've gotten to the point where in the past, before, I was able to push through it. But now I just can't. And I need to just shut down. So, and it's true. Like, it is one of those things where if I go too hard for too long, I will crash. And that's kind of the stasis I'm in right now, actually. I just got to make it through like the next 2 more weeks. And then I'm probably going to, I told Slice and my husband, I'm like, I'm going to crash magnificently. It is going to be the most glorious crash anybody's ever seen. But like, I know that about me, I make sure the people around me know that, so that when it does happen, because it's not a self-fulfilling prophecy, it's fall. I hate fall. It's the lack of light. It's like all the season things for me with my mental health gets bad. And then I've just come off doing grossly huge things with my life that have taken a lot out of me, required a lot of me. So
Well, the Pride Cup tournament was a big deal, right? So that was probably hugely stressful.
It's it is very stressful. Slice has been telling me since like the beginning of our relationship that she thinks that I have ADHD or some sort of neurospiciness, and I'm like, no, I don't. No, I don't. Yes, like 100% I do. Because I get very hyper focused on organization, and I'm really good at like organizing people, schedules, getting people through things, like, but yeah, it was just a lot for several months, and then it all came to a head, and it went well for our first tournament, our first short track roller derby tournament, which is so crazy. um but then the next day my mother-in-law came into town from Florida for the first time in like 3 years. So for the following week, and I'm just like,
Mm.
okay.
Yeah, that's rough.
So yeah, it's like I've got Slice and I announced a double header for Connecticut Roller Derby last weekend, and then this coming weekend we're skating in the New York City Marathon, the skate marathon, and then the weekend after that is our last bout for the season, and I'm coaching.
Oh my
Yep.
God. Nice.
Life. Just life. It's, yeah, that's why. And I guess kind of to round back, like I think that's how I try to like deal with my own shit, is that I have people in my life that really love me and really support me, and I just try to be as honest to a fault about how I am and how I feel like I'm gonna handle something. And they're there. They're just there to kind of, you know, make sure I'm drinking and make sure I'm eating and make sure I'm going to sleep, and like giving me the space when I need the space. I just need the space sometimes. So
I love that. And have you ever explored why it is you need to keep so busy?
uh it's like a twofold thing. I have, ever since I can remember, I've just had this drive to like this is an amazing world. Like this is an amazing life. Like I have privilege, which I'm grateful for. I I have tenacity. Like I just want to travel. I want to do all the things because they just seem so amazing and fun, and like, oh, let's try that. Like I almost became a skydiving instructor. Like I never wanted to go snorkeling ever in my life, and then I went to the Galapagos, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever. Like it's a part of me that just like wants to see all these awesome things happen, and if it's not happening, I'll make it happen.
Mhm.
So that's just kind of part of my personality. But my therapist and I have talked a lot about the need to just constantly be busy, and I'm sure there's a lot of deep-seated shit there that we'll get to someday.
Maybe a little bit of avoidance.
Yeah, I'm very good at denial. Suits for sure.
I don't remember which episode it was exactly, and I don't remember the details, but I remember you saying something about your knee.
Mm.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Is this the reason why you're stepping back a bit more from Derby and going into officiating, or it's something else?
So it's twofold. I am going to be 44 this year, and there are a lot of people out there that do derby well into much later life. But uh, after 2 knee surgeries, like I'm not in the shape I need to be to feel comfortable being in that heavy of a situation as to be in a pack of people 10, 20 years younger than me, sometimes more. Um, And while I would love to have just like that one more season, if I did, I just want to have that one more season. Like it's just that the way that I am when it comes to this sport. So, um, and really at the end of the day, what it comes down for me is I just want to skate. Like that's what brings me the most joy. Like I love to skate. And if I get to the point where even that is impossible for me, because at this point, like my dad, like we were a skating family. like I started skating when I was very, very young, and my dad took us to open skates like every week during my childhood. And now his body is so far gone that he cannot skate anymore. And it's one of like the saddest things is that. And he's done it to himself in a lot of ways, but it's also genetics. And I have that, like, there's bad knees in my family. So I want to just make sure I can skate. And that's why short track has been really intriguing to me. It's a little less intense, but also officiating. I just get to skate, and then I just get to tell people what, that yes, you did that good, or no, you did that bad. You need to go. It keeps me involved. And like we say on the podcast, like there's so many ways for you to stay involved in this sport. But on the other side of it is, there's been, dramatic upheaval within my league. There's been like a division within my league that really, really sucks. And I have a loud voice and I have leadership positions. So I'm definitely part of that divide, and it sucks. But it has sucked all the joy out of it for me. And it's not the first time it's happened. It happened to me before. Similar things, not the same, but like, it follows the same pattern. And you just kind of have to reevaluate. And last time I just stepped away for a couple of years, but this time I refuse. Like, nope, I'm going to pivot. And it's a sign. It's a sign for me to just do something different. And the derby world needs officials, and short track could be really a thing. So like, this is just my time to move on and support my league in other ways.
I think it's a common thing.
Yeah.
That's really unfortunate.
Yeah. And, we actually did an episode not long ago called Don't Be a Dick. And, and we did it, and Slice and I talked a lot about it, and they were like, I don't want we don't want our podcast to negatively impact our league. Like, we want it completely separate. But like the stuff that's going on in our league goes on in every league. Like, the drama just happens. Like, people have personalities, and we have neurodivergent, strong, willful, like, think about what it takes to play derby. And that's the kind of people that you attract. So like, there's just going to be shit. And I think having been through something like this before, I knew how to handle it this time. And I feel a lot better with the way that I've chosen. Like, I've made my boundaries and I've stuck with them, and I feel good about that.
Are you grieving any part of leaving it behind at this point, or are you?
Yeah, I am. Because I love coaching. I really do. Like, it's like the good kind of stress for me. And if you were to ever watch me coach, I never stop pacing because I can't, or I'll like do jumps. I'll jump. I just want every single person to succeed. Like, I just genuinely want I don't care if we win. I just want them to succeed at what they're doing, because we are a team of parents and pet moms and like daughters and wives and partners. Like, we have all this shit. The fucking world's on fire, and our political scene is a fucking nightmare. And we have these hour and a half, 2 hours twice a week where we just get to be Karnage or Slice or Mean Bean. Like, you get to be that person. And I want to make sure that the effort that people are putting in, it brings them joy and lifts them up, because I've wanted somebody to do that for me for so long. Like, I want that for people. That's how we're going to make this. That's how we're going to get through all this shit, is just to lift people up when they need help and to support them
Have you had people in your league who've done that for you? Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. A lot of people. And that's, I think, what, when I was really, really depressed about what was happening, it was really a huge time of uncertainty for me over the summer. But I knew how many people supported me, and I knew how many people were just, they see my value, or they see what I bring, and they see the effort. For me, I'm incredibly sensitive, like, to a fault. It is a problem, but I'm incredibly sensitive when it comes to, like, being seen for what I do. Like, I'm trying so hard for this league to succeed, and if I feel like that's being questioned, it's like, how I hate the incredulity that some people bring out in me. It's for like, how do you think, what? I'm so confused.
Yeah,
But yeah.
that's really hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to speaking of like how you want everybody to succeed, I'm just going to pivot a little bit. I have noticed that on your podcast too, you've basically become a platform for um, some really important topics and leaks. Like, for example, I've just listened to Fuego Latino. I'm probably not pronouncing that right.
Yeah, Fuego Latino. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And I just love that you guys are fairly new as a podcast, that you're bringing on some really really good, like, not heavy, but like really important topics
Yeah.
through Derby. So do you want to speak to that a little bit? What inspired you to go that direction?
Yeah. I mean, again, Slice and I, when we were talking about doing the podcast, and as it kind of developed, because it was like, boom, oh my goodness, what? Like, it was so great. I mean, it was so great. But like, we realize our privilege, like, we understand what it affords us, and not everybody has a platform, and not everybody has, like, the resources, or whatever, whatever it is, but we do. And it takes all kinds to play. Derby has all kinds of different people, and some of them are really need a platform and really need a voice. And god damn it, I'm definitely doing that shit. Like, if it helps, and you're not like, and you have a good heart about it, like, I want to know that, like, that's really cool. Like, I've learned so much, like, just doing this podcast and interviewing these people. And like, we have met some amazing people that, god, I am so lucky. I'm so fortunate. And a lot of this I'm going to attribute to Slice, because Slice is like the most friendliest person, has no fear. Where my anxiety takes hold, theirs is just like off the charts. Like I said, I'm good at like the scheduling and like keeping things running, but they go out and they make shit happen. Like, um but we feel very strongly about like the borderless teams, because like, they're just so amazing. Like, just allowing that to be a thing, and to have it be really awesome too. Like, I want everybody to know about that. Skeet fighters skate across the US to raise awareness for missing and murdered Indigenous persons. Like, my father asked me about that. Like, my dad, who never listens to a goddamn episode, I told him, and he's like, oh, I think I'll have to listen to that. I'm like, great, excellent, listen to it. You should totally listen to it. But even just the people, like, especially in like the mental health series, a lot of the people we talk to, we know by proxy somehow, but a lot of people we don't. And I guess it just goes to show that everybody has a story, and everybody has a situation, and everybody is worth listening to, because you might just learn something. You might just find out, like, oh, I never knew that about MS, or I never knew that about, bipolar disorder. Like, I didn't know there were two types of bipolar disorder. Cool. Like, I'm not cool, but like, that's interesting. Like,
Yeah,
yay, you've got
yeah,
that. Congratulations. Yeah, I just think it's important, and that's what we do, and we're excited. We have so much more awesome stuff lined up too, and you know, our community is looked on as like an alternative community or like a subculture, and I love it that it is. But some of the most amazing, kind, warm, interesting people I've ever met, nearly all of them have been part of this community, and we need to highlight those people. Like, we need to give them a voice. I want to hear from them. That's why every time on our episode, we want to hear your derby story. Like, why not? Something got you into this crazy, weird, complicated sport. I want to know.
it's true because like it's really fun to hear about like like the freight trains and the smarty pants and all those famous derby skaters. But like I feel like the episodes that really resonated with me are the people that I hadn't known about before,
Yeah.
like the Fuego Latinos and like um, yeah, like the mental health episodes and things like that, because they kind of bring it back down to being very relatable.
Yeah.
And what I like about your podcast is that yeah, you guys are meeting them, but by proxy your listeners are meeting them. It's
Right.
like you're making connections to people who would have never really connected. Like, so some person in Canada is listening and is learning about Fuego Latino, like, so it's, yeah,
Yeah.
it's really cool that way. So that must be very fulfilling, I imagine, for.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some episodes I've gotten off and I'm just like almost in tears. Like, I'm just so I'm just like, that was so good. Like, it was such a great conversation, or I really hope that people love this because it was so good. Like, it made me happy, or it gave me a new perspective. Or like when a skater wrote a book or made a movie or made a comic book. Like, look, we need to support these people. These are our people. Like, but like, nobody, the general media is not going to give them attention because it's derby. Nobody knows about derby, So
Yeah, like the Minnesota Mean documentary.
yeah,
That was
yeah,
really cool.
which was so good.
It was good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you so do you find that like the podcast obviously takes up a lot of your time, and I can hear in your voice how much, well, now, but also in the podcast, how much of yourself, like how much emotion you put into it, right? Do you feel like it fills your tank, or does it also empty your tank? Like, because it's a lot, right? Like when you bring that much of yourself to something, it can kind of be hard. Like I don't know how to describe that, but like to drain you a little bit.
Well, yeah, it's an extra weight, right? Like, there's an extra weight to carry around. And like, when we first started this thing, like, we were just like, eh, like, we're funny. We like to talk about this. Like, we think we're funny. We're going to talk about this and see where it goes. And and when it did take off, it was shocking in a way, like, and that we were meeting all these people and making all these connections. Um, and then, like, we we are pretty good about taking breaks when when we need to. Like, we took a couple weeks off around Pride Cup because we just couldn't. We physically just did not have the time to do anything else. So like, in the beginning, I would feel bad. Like, I would feel really guilty about not putting something out or putting out content because I didn't want to lose any footing. I didn't want to lose us gaining momentum. But Slice is very good about balancing me out. They are very, very good with me. And a lot of it's just my anxiety taking over, and just, worrying where things probably aren't necessary to worry about, but that's just me. But yeah, there's been times when it's just like it's all a lot. and and I need to kind of I just need to push through, because I know, like, I'll have a couple of weeks off or something. So like, at the end of mental health series, like we had been recording almost twice a week for like 3 months, which in the beginning, I promised my husband it wouldn't be any more than every other week because he was worried about me taking on too much. And and now we were doing it twice a week, every week for 3 months. And then I went to Japan. So I actually physically separated myself and reset. That was a huge deal for me. But yeah, it's kind of my personality. I go hard, and then I just need a break. And I take it. And like we've had this time off. We'll go crazy until like December, then take December off, and just kind of have that cycle. So yeah.
And so you kind of mentioned a little bit of anxiety around the momentum thing and losing footing, which is totally understandable, though I really don't think that would happen. But to explore a bit more of the anxiety piece too, like being bigger than you probably imagined you would be, right, in the derby community, does that also trigger some anxiety, like because now you feel like what you say has so much weight?
You know what? It doesn't, in a way, because like I've just started to feel like that recently, especially like around RollerCon, and now that like we interviewed Lily Gaskell, we interviewed Freight Train, like we're interviewing people that have social status in our community, and like we need to be a reputable, not dickish podcast, like but I trust us enough that I actually don't have a lot of anxiety about that. And Slice is really good about being very aware, and like we really think about and talk about like verbiage we use, and like people that we do interview and don't interview. Like there's definitely been people where we're like, that's not going to be a thing. That's not going to be a thing. And like if either of us get like a vibe about anything, we're just like, nope, we're not going to do it. So yeah, I kind of trust my spidey sense and their spidey sense, and like, okay, this feels great, and like that was amazing, or yeah. But yeah, the anxiety comes from just, I'm tasked with the organization and like the financial part of it. So it's just like, okay, this also costs money. Like, and we need to get sponsors. So like, I'm always worried about like, being a healthy business, because we actually have a legitimate business now that pays taxes. And it's like, holy shit. Like I never wanted to be this adult in my entire life.
Right. Have you guys considered like a Patreon or something like that, so that it's like, rather than keep trying to find sponsors, you have a steady flow?
We have, but it's not very successful for us, but that's okay.
Maybe after the Freight Train interview.
Maybe.
Perfect. Something you said earlier while we were off camera really resonated with me, which was you were talking about feeling very emotional about, I'm paraphrasing, very emotional about your connection with derby, and not everybody feels the same way. Like some people can just show up to practice and then go home and it's just sport, etc. Can you speak to me a bit more about that? Like,
yeah, I think when derby is a pretty young sport in its iteration, in modern derby, and I've been around for a good chunk of that. So I've been very observant about how people are, and some people want it more, but just don't have the time due to family obligations and just life happening, where this just isn't a possibility. I've definitely met people who are like, yeah, I love all you guys, but like, I just don't get it. And that's, I mean, I don't understand what planet you're on, but no. No. But I do. the way I kind of looked at my derby journey is that I found derby exactly when I needed to. It it came at a point where I was in a really toxic, horrible relationship, and I was I felt very alone and very lonely, um and I found derby, and I've never had a community, and I've never been part of like a sports community or any kind of community that was really like a healthy and supportive one the way that derby is. Um and I think people come to derby for different reasons. You know, they just like to skate. They just like to play derby. They, for whatever reason, they just want to hit people. I've definitely met skaters that are just that way. They're like, I don't get why everybody else is so crazy. They don't want to deal with the drama. They just want to go around and skate and hit people. Um, but I think that some people have that kind of, dare I say, not a cultish reaction to it.
I'll put a
Where,
link to where you could buy
yeah,
that.
not a cult, yeah, yeah. But I think some people do have that kind of experience that's similar to mine, where it found them when they needed it, and it's given them more than they expected, and it fits with their life, or they made their life fit around it. I've met a lot of mothers who felt like they didn't have anything else besides their kids, and they lost their identity somewhere along the way, and that's been a really powerful. I think derby gives them a lot of power, a lot of self back. So derby gave me a purpose. It kept me healthy. It kept me thinking about my health and being active, but it also supported me when I needed it the most. So my my husband often says, I am roller derby. Like, it is every part of me, which is something so odd for me to hear, because I never would have thought that for myself. Um, but he knew going into the relationship that I have this other relationship, and it is with derby, and like that will always be like, that was a very clear thing that I stated in the beginning of our relationship. Like, this is what I do. And he's very supportive. But like a relationship, it does it never brings you so much joy as, those perfect bouts, or that perfect practice, or just the greatest after party, or the best road trip you've ever been on. But it's also made you want to burn everything to the ground, set it all on fire, and just watch it burn. Because fuck every single thing about what you just you're looking at, because I just hate it all. um, and everything in between, the ugliness of people, the beauty of people, uh, the small tokens of just kindness and love and support. Um, at the end of the day, like I had mentioned before we recorded, it's like, you have to, when you get to the points where you just want to burn it all to the ground, and you just want to watch it burn, you have to take a step back and think, is it still worth it? Like, is this worth it for me? What makes it worth it? List those things out. How will you feel if it's not something that you're part of anymore? And for me, like, yeah, I still choose it every day.
And I don't know if this is more of a personal thing or if it's a general depression thing, but sometimes I feel like I have like these depression glasses, right? And I don't know if you're the same way, where you'll experience something and you're sure things happened a certain way, or that someone said a certain thing. And then sometimes if it's written down, I'll go back like a week or two later and reread and be like, I don't even know where I read that. So sometimes I feel like the depression also kind of filters things into making things worse, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
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 So sometimes like it's hard to trust yourself too. Like when you get into that, I want to burn everything down.
Mhm.
Um, I'm also at the point where I'm like, do I actually want to burn all this down, or am I depressed?
Yeah.
And well,
Yeah.
literally in 2 weeks when I like have some good sleep and like,
Yeah.
I don't.
And incidentally, if the general, big drama is happening of right around the time that you're PMSing, like it's a terrible mix. Like it is really bad. Yeah, I think that you're spot on there. I mean, it's definitely one of those things where I have to like do I really hate this, or am I just really burnt out? The burnout, which is very real, as we all know. Um, and if I am just burned out, okay, then I need to take a step back. I need to like reassess. Maybe just don't go to practice for a little while. But I do like a part of my depression is pretty extreme, like guilt and like shame, where I feel like, and in fact, Slice and I got into a play argument, a false argument today about me taking things too personally, or what was it? It was a meme about how you respond to text messages and how they sound to a person with anxiety. And I'm like, yeah, because everybody's always mad at me. What do you want from me? Like, everybody's always mad at me. And Slice's favorite line to say to me all the time is, Karnage, it's not always about you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but is it though? Are you sure? I'm sure it's usually about me. I'm
I
sure.
don't know if they've added punctuation. Like if there's a period at the end of that sentence, they are for sure mad at me.
Yep. Yep. You didn't he responded with K. Okay. The only person that can respond to K with me is my husband, and that's because he's like driving or something.
Oh, yeah, that's brutal. And I have found that for sure. Like some really intense things that I've had go on within Derby has happened over text. Because it's like, I don't know why, but there's something about misreading because you just don't have the whole body there, right? And like, you just can't communicate well with the other person, and then you're both misunderstanding each other, and it snowballs. So, yeah, that's brutal. And you talked before too about putting all of your eggs in this basket. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that and like how you're trying to diversify, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, in the past, when I first started doing Derby back in 2011, um, it was it was so all consuming. Like it was just my entire life for a full year. And it ended with me tearing my ACL.
Mm.
So it was one of those things where I went so hard and had nothing else. Like I wasn't spending time with anybody else except for Derby. Um, and all of a sudden it's just like I'm injured. But in that instance, like Derby really rallied around me, and I was super grateful. But so because of their outpouring of support and help, like it just solidified all my eggs are staying in this basket and I'm just keep going. And then when things get really shitty, like that's what happened. Like, huge drama bomb that happened, and which resulted in me just burning the fuck out. And I didn't go back for 2 years. um, until I had the death of several people in my life happen in like 6 months, and dealing with like cleaning out a hoarder's estate. And at the end of it, I just looked at my husband and I said, I have to go back because I have lost who I am now. And, but I think that's the thing, it's like, and my husband's biggest concern was putting he's like, I saw what it did to you. I saw what the fallout was, and I don't want that for you. You have to promise me that you're not going to take on a board position.
Oh. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he did say that.
Mhm.
And I didn't right away. I totally didn't. Not until like my second year back.
That's a long time to hold off. Yeah. And
Yeah.
why? Why did you do that to yourself?
That's a really good question, but like I also feel like I have experience. Like I know how to skate. I'm not the best derby player, but I know how to skate, and I think I listen well to people, and I know the game. And like derby always needs help. Derby always needs help. But I will. I did promise to him that I wouldn't. It would be different, and I will say, even with all the shit that's happened, it is different. Um, I don't have. I'm willing to swap out eggs. I still have this one basket, but I'm easily removing the eggs that don't serve me well anymore and bringing on new things so that the success of our community and the success of our sport means a lot to me. Because it provides the things that I want for everybody, which is a space to be yourself and a space for inclusivity and a space for you to feel safe. That's what I want for everybody.
Mhm.
And I want that basket. I love that basket so much. But sometimes rotten eggs, they need to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, that's true. That's profound once again. And you have some other eggs, right? You've been talking about pottery.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have a pottery business. I've had that longer than I've definitely been with the podcast. It's called Left Turn Pottery because of Derby,
Nice.
and I'm left leaning. But I live in a very conservative area, so anytime conservatives look at my side, they're like left turn pottery, like giving me the stink eye.
Yeah.
I'm like, I play roller derby. We
Mhm.
turn left.
Yeah.
Buy my stuff and go away. Thank you so much.
Right.
But yeah, I actually had to make the conscious decision this year to back off on pottery because I needed to focus on the podcast. And last year I tried to do it all. And that was very unhealthy for me. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to play with clay when I can. And it's going to be a no stress thing because it needs to be. But I do notice when I haven't done it for a long time and I go back to it, I'm like, I feel so much better. Like it's the thing that grounds me.
Do you
So
struggle a little bit with setting boundaries for the podcast? Because I hear you that you've taken breaks, but they've almost sounded like forced breaks because you literally could not work on the podcast. So I'm like, oh, is that a boundary or is that just you just literally could not? Because if you could, you would. Like I was in
yeah,
Japan, you know, like
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, no, they're forced for sure. And yeah, the podcast, I don't have a whole lot of boundaries with the podcast at this point um because like we just want it to flourish. Like it's a very focused thing. But I will say that Slice is better at boundaries than I am, and they are the ones that edit the podcast. So if they can't do it, then they can't do it, and that is okay. That is very good, and we just need to take a beat. And they have definitely made me just take a break because I'm not
Yeah.
very good at that. Like, it's just not my strong suit.
Kind of like an analogy though, but when you talked about, tearing your ACL and then the community rallying around you, you guys have that Discord community, which is so surprisingly active. Or maybe I
Yeah.
just haven't been in many Discord communities, but I feel like too, like I feel like you guys have started to build a little bit of a community. So I think people would be understanding if you needed a break,
Yeah.
especially with the mental health things and things like that. But
Yeah, and we posted, I think today, Slice posted about like us announcing over the weekend and that we haven't been posting any new episodes because we've just literally couldn't. And that we're doing we like to do fun like what we call our fun silly episodes where it's just the two of us talking.
Yeah.
So an episode is that's coming out is going to be like that.
Nice.
Yeah. It is one of those things with my mental health that, as I've mentioned on the podcast before, my life is filled. My pillars, the people that hold me up or help with my life, are all Taurus. They're all Taurus. My husband's a Taurus. Slice is a Taurus. Our friend Grace is a Taurus. Whiskey is a Taurus. It is fucking crazy. So I have those really grounding people that, because if I don't, like my father growing up would be like, you are burning the candle at both ends. You're doing it. And like, since I can remember, he would say that to me. So it's just how I am. And I need those people to be like, heart stop. You just need to sit right here. And I'm like, are you sure? I don't know if I could do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard because if you do have ADHD, which you probably do,
Yeah.
when when you're interested in something, your brain is just literally like, no, I need to do this thing all of the time. And
Yeah.
who needs to eat? Who needs to sleep? I need to do this thing,
Yeah. Yep. I will push through what I need to push through to get something done. I mean, I remember being in grad school for interior design, and I redid my entire final project the like weekend before it was due, and I pulled an all-nighter and just worked for like 48 hours straight. I did it. I got a B.
Yeah, I think you have ADHD. I'm not a psychologist. I'm an accountant, but I'm diagnosing you. No, I feel that very hard.
Yeah.
You know those extremes, right? Like with Derby, like the crazy, like happy moments, but also like the crazy, infuriating, like I don't know, sobbing your eyes out moments. Like I'm still trying to figure out how those two things can coexist within one space, within one sport. And for me, I think the only thing that explains it is when so many people feel so passionately about something. That's what happens. Is you have these emotions in other aspects of your life. It's just there's not that passion fueling it in either direction, right? But
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any thoughts about like why that is.
Yeah, for some reason, when you asked that question, it reminded me of something a practitioner, a spiritual practitioner once told me. And it was like our initial consultation, and I told her that I do roller derby, and it's like the most chaotic thing because my brain is just full of chaos, and it just makes sense for me to be part of this. And I said, and she said to me, she's like, you know what, it's finding, I said, it's like chaos on the track. She's like, when you're in the chaos on the track, it's like finding the calm in the chaos. It's finding that way through the chaos that's around you, finding what the way through. And I think that has resonated with me so hard since she told me that, because I think just for me, it kind of exemplifies what derby is. It's chaos. The people who are in derby for one reason or another, they're dealing with some sort of chaos. They're gravitating towards this game that is so confusing, or just like there's just a lot going on all around you. And that's why I'm fascinated by people who are like neurodivergent and like autistic and that sort of thing, trying to like do derby and how different of an experience it is for them. But finding that peace in the chaos. And when you are angry and you are just wanting to like burn it all down, it's like finding that peace in that chaos. Everybody's passionate. Like sometimes people need to tell me like, well, she's behaving that way because of how this must mean a lot to her. And I'm like, I think having people that you can listen to that provide you a different perspective is really important. in those times of really mad chaos, you rely on your coach and your teammates to get you through the track, to get you through that jam. But when it all blows up for one reason or another, finding the people who want to work to make it better, find that peace, find those people that want to keep it healthy.
I love that. That's beautiful.
You're making me feel very good about myself right now.
You should feel very good about yourself. No, it's very. I just love. I don't know. I just love listening to people, and like you've been saying some really profound things, and I just it resonates a lot. I think.
Yeah, and it really, my 32-year-old self wouldn't have had this conversation. Like my 32-year-old self was a very different person going into Derby. Like Derby, the experiences I've had in Derby have made me who I am, have made me grow up, like have taught me such valuable lessons. Like I'm the manager of my department now, and I don't know if I would have had some of that confidence to do what I do now. So I owe a lot. I feel like I owe a lot to the sport, and I owe a lot to the community, and to see like these juniors that are coming up, and those weird kids that just didn't fit in anywhere else that found their home in Derby. Like I want to build those people up. Like they need that hand, and it's worth fighting for, and it's worth keeping healthy. And I feel very passionately about people who want to fucking shit in my Cheerios.
Absolutely. And I think though, like I think you've already done a lot, like just through the podcast alone, but obviously also through coaching. But like I said before, giving the platform to those people who need the platform, and then connecting people who wouldn't normally be connected. Like if you even just do that one time, I feel like that's worthwhile. But you've done it numerous, like multiple times. So like I think the debt is paid.
Yeah.
So, but don't stop doing it because I love. Selfishly, I enjoy it, but I'm just saying. No, I think you're doing what you set out to do. So
and like I think that's at our core, our mission statement for the pod. Like just giving people a voice that need a voice, but keeping it fun and informative. Like we're not here to fight about things. We all know how I lean politically, but like we're not gonna fight about that. It's a safe space, and we want to make sure we keep it safe, because you can go doom scroll after you listen, or while you listen, who knows. But at least if we are giving people a place where they can feel heard and seen, I'm going to keep doing that. I like that.
Yeah, I think that's how things change. It's the little actions, right?
Huge little actions, like that person buying your coffee for you in the drive-through line, or like, it's just those little things. They do make a difference. They do make somebody's day.
And they tend to have a domino effect. I think when you're kind to somebody, then they'll be kind to somebody, and then
Yep.
And vice versa. If you're a dick to somebody, then maybe they'll be a dick to somebody else. So
right, exactly.
So don't be a dick.
Yeah, don't be a dick. Rule number one.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. That was incredible. Is there anything that you would like to say that maybe I didn't ask you about that you?
I guess not really. I think, just reiterating that, like, everybody's going to have their own journey with Derby. Not every journey is going to be mine, or even close to it. I always kind of say, and I find it very much to be true, but like certain people I find skate like other people. Like I'll be like, oh, such and such skates like such and such. And, but the reason for you to do the sport, and the reason for you to be part of the community is yours and yours alone. and just enjoy it for what it is. And if it's your time to be done with it, then it's your time to be done with it. Like people who have left Derby before for one reason or another, they feel terrible, like that they have to give this up for now. And my response has always been, it's always going to be here. If you can come back to it, it's here. And if you don't for 5 years, 10 years, okay. It's here whenever you're ready. And if you're never ready, that's cool. At least you've had that experience and you can say that you played roller derby. And most people think you're way cooler now.
I'm just curious, have you ever tried the skate park?
Yes.
I know it was a very random question, but
no. Okay. I have. I almost broke my thumb.
Oh
no. I just don't think that I'm a park skater.
That's fair.
I really love trail skating.
Trail skating is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I just, the moments that you like, you're going through a guided meditation and your yogi or what have you just says, like, find your safe space, find your happy place. Like maybe you're in a meadow or whatever. Like mine is like skating with my eyes closed down the road, like with the wind just going through your hair, just feeling free. Like that's the closest to flying that I'll ever get. It's my most freeing moment. So you got to find what makes that for you.
I'll plug park skating a little bit. I gotta say that at least in our community, we have like a little community of park skaters, which there's a lot of crossover with the derby. There's a lot of derby people in the park community.
Yeah.
But what's fun about it is you don't even have to be good at park skating. Like even if you go down a little tiny ramp or you do a toe stall, the beautiful thing is everybody's cheering for you.
Yeah.
And the other beautiful thing about it is you only do as much as you want. So it ends up being mostly a social activity and there's no goals to hit. There's no minimum skills. There's no So anyway, just putting that out there and whenever you're like, reffing, but I want to do something else. Hey, you might like it.
Yeah. I could. I very well could. Yeah, I'll have to add that to the list.
I feel like I've seen a video or a story from Slice. I don't know, punching a wall or something. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Our Bruce Boutique in Nashua, New Hampshire, they have an indoor skate ramp and they offer classes, and Slice took one there. And a couple of other people from our league did too. And it was a lot of fun for them. And I was going to go, but like just work or whatever, something else happened. But so I'm sure I'll go up and I'm sure I'll try at some point.
Never know.
The problem is that I'm going to want to do it. Then I'm going to need to get different skates. And then I'm going to because that's just how I go.
And blocks. The whole thing. Yeah, it's a thing, but it's fun. But trail skating's great too.
Yeah.
But I appreciate your time so much, especially since you are so busy.
Yeah, I've watched what you've posted so far, and it looks really great. Like,
oh wow, thanks.
I know you're saying like amateur, but like it looks really good. So
it's pretty amateur. Well, I posted the last one was last night. So it's Coach Potato, and that's she's been with the league for 14 years, coaching for 13.
Oh, wow.
And her story was really, really interesting. But yesterday I was having so many technical issues exporting the darn thing, and there was like these little glitches. I just kept noticing them, and I was going insane. And I'm like, I don't care, it's done. I'm like, I'm gonna fall back on amateur. If anybody says anything about it, I'm like, I said I was an amateur. I'm not like misleading anybody.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, that's why we definitely say often that we are amateur podcasters. Like we just like that nobody trained us. We're just doing it. But you're doing it.
Authentic. It's authentic. Yeah, that's what I love about the podcast. It's authentic.
Yeah.
It's great.
We just like talking to people. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I hope you get some rest.
Thank you.
And,
I appreciate it. Thank you for asking me. This was a lot of fun. I love talking to you. It was very cool. And
awesome.
We'll have to have you on the pod.
Oh yeah, sure. Maybe. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. When what do you plan to do with this? Are you gonna be putting it are you releasing it, or are you doing it just on YouTube, or what's your plan?
I was just gonna keep going with the series. It's not gonna be the Black and Blue documentary, but I don't know what you would call a documentary that's not a documentary.
Like
uh,
a mini series?
yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
All
Can I
right.
steal that?
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I've talked to some incredible people, like,
Yeah.
and I have these interviews and I can't use all of them, so I want to share them with people because they're just so amazing. So yeah, I am planning on doing like a little mini series when I'm done the documentary of like those interviews that I collected, because
Nice.
and maybe keep doing it because I just like you, I love listening to people.
Yeah.
So it's been really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's got a cool story.
Yeah. But you're right, Derby has very special people.
Yeah, they do. They do. They really do.